looking at the red pill and mgtow from a spiritual perspective. What's up, guys? It's Jay Lee, doing a night walk here. It's a little bit cold, feeling a little nauseous, so please bear with me. There's a whole lot to unpack here. Only got about a half hour on this video. Like I said, there's a whole lot to unpack, so I'm probably not going to be able to cover all of it. I'll be able to cover a few main points. The spiritual perspective I'm talking about is a biblical perspective, so let me get that out of the way right away. So if you don't believe in the Bible, if you don't believe in God, this is not going to be a talk for you, okay? And I know there's a lot of mgtow guys out there, a lot of red pill guys out there who do believe in God, who do believe in the Bible. So I'm really kind of speaking to you. And, if you might find my concepts interesting and you don't believe in God or the Bible, you might still find this talk interesting, because it is really related to what we go through in this matrix, right? It is really related to all the red pill truths, all the red pill concepts that we go over, right? From a biblical perspective. Actually, what I'm going to talk about is a macro perspective. It is going to be an overview of a really interesting point, which is that, there are powers that be out there, right? And maybe you could argue that they're fighting, that they're fighting, and there's a battle between good and evil, right? And it sure does make sense when you think about it from a macro perspective, that if evil is trying to overcome good, that a large part of where evil is going to focus their efforts on is going to be the family unit within society. If in fact, mankind, or the corruption or usurpation of mankind is the goal. Right? Now, what do I mean by that? So now I'm going to get into what I'm talking about. Now I'm going to start unpacking. Well, from a biblical perspective, if you read the Bible, God created man in his image to bear his likeness, his testimony, and his expression, right? And part of his plan, of course, those of us who are very well read in the Bible, who read the New Testament, part of his plan was to create Lucifer. And he knew Lucifer was going to fall. He knew Lucifer was going to be corrupted and subsequently be expelled or hold his rebellion on the earth. God allowed this. Why do we know God allowed this? Because Satan was in the Garden of Eden. If God didn't want Satan to be in the Garden of Eden, he simply wouldn't have allowed Satan to be in the Garden of Eden. How did man get corrupted? How did the term original sin come into being? Satan corrupted Eve. Now that's a great note in and of itself. That's a monumental point right there in and of itself. Satan went to Eve first. He didn't go to Adam. He went to the woman. He did not go to man first in order to corrupt. He went to the woman first, and subsequently the woman corrupted the man. Eve corrupted Adam, saying, "Oh, this is good," right? She didn't know what she was doing. Satan did not go to Adam. He went to Eve. If he went to Adam, Adam might have said, "Get out of here, you stupid serpent," right? Or Adam might have said, "Hey, why don't you talk to God?" Or why don't you, deal with God, not me, right? Who knows? But probably Satan was smart enough to realize that, hey, the woman could be corrupted. Now that brings up a question. Why was the woman corrupted? Why did God create the woman in a corruptible way, that she could allow herself to be corrupted? Now you can say, well, we all have free will and woo woo woo. But again, Satan went to the woman and not the man. So there must be something there. And even today, women are not like men, right? Even though supposedly the Bible says we're all created in the image of God, why are women so different than men, right? Maybe they might hold the physical characteristics of a man, and man might hold the physical characteristics of God. However, women are very different than men, right? We all know this. This is, laden within all that we talk about in the red pill. The major differences between men and women, it's evident. Right? So that's not even arguable. We can't sit around and say, well, women are the same as men. No, they're not. They're not. So there must be something within, woman that God created in order to be corrupted, in order to be the way that they are. He must have done that on purpose, because God is a God of purpose, right? If you think and you philosophize and you think about all these things, you have to come to these conclusions, right? Why are women, the way that they are if they're also human like men? Because men are not the same way women are, right? So there must be either a biological purpose for that, which there is, and I'll get into that, and or B, God did it on purpose for a reason, right? And I believe it's both. I believe, yes, on the one hand, there is a biological purpose for women being the way that they are. There is survival. I've been talking about this lately as far as, the purpose of hypergamy and things like that. And it does further society. It does push men in a way to be more successful and if women just accepted all men, right, we wouldn't probably, we wouldn't need to we wouldn't need to be successful. We wouldn't need to work hard. We could just sit around and, okay, well, I'm going to get chosen anyway, so I might as well not work very hard, right? You think about it, there's a biological, scientific survival aspect there. Is that good or bad? Both. It's both good and bad, right? It's good in the sense that it furthers society or furthers our success, etc., because men need to get off their ass and go be successful so that a woman will choose them, right? So it furthers our species on the one hand. On the other hand, it's bad because women don't really love us, right? So it's the bane of our existence. Now, if you really understand the Bible, like I said, this video is going to be from a biblical perspective. So I'm going to stray a lot away from that science, biological perspective into the biblical perspective. Now, if you understand the Bible and you read the Bible a lot, you'll know that the Bible talks a lot about women. Ecclesiastes, Proverbs, Paul talks about it in 1 Corinthians a lot. And Romans, I think he talks about a little bit in other books as well. So not only is Paul talking about, women a lot, but so is King Solomon, right? Now you could argue these two men, King Solomon and Paul, were two of probably the most used men in the entire Bible by God, right? Solomon built God's temple, which was a second temple, I believe. The first one was torn down. Solomon built the second one, and he was used very much as a representative of Christ. And Solomon was probably, arguably, the biggest and most influential, important person in the Old Testament. He represented Christ as far as his wisdom is concerned. He represented Christ as far as rebuilding the temple is concerned. Which is, if you understand the Bible, those are huge, huge things. On the other hand, he also had a lot of concubines, which eventually corrupted him. I think he had 1,500 or a couple thousand or something like that, concubines, which is basically women, I don't know how you want to put it, his women playthings, essentially, right? So there was lust involved with this man. So he was very wise, very godly on the one hand. On the other hand, he was very corrupt, very lustful, and that eventually dragged him down into his ruin, if you understand his story. Now, Paul was different in that aspect, in that Paul abstained from lust. He probably overcame his lust. And Paul, actually, I made a video a long time ago entitled Paul the Apostle was mgtow. Paul was mgtow, for all intents and purposes. He didn't call himself mgtow. But he was mgtow. He did not have a wife. He did not adhere to the marriage. He didn't tell people not to get married. Well, he kind of did, actually. He said, I'd prefer that you not get married. And he gave a reason for that. He said, I prefer you not to get married because you're going to have more pain and suffering if you get married. You're going to have, you're going to struggle because you're going to want to be pleasing your wife. It's literally what he said. You're going to want to please your wife and not the Lord. So he knew something about female nature, right? And so did Solomon. Solomon said, how many godly, good women out there are there? He said, not many. He said, Amongst 1,000 men, I could maybe find one who is righteous and who is good. Amongst 1,000 women, I can't even find one, right? He said something like that in Ecclesiastes. Go read Ecclesiastes, particularly I think chapter 7. I mean, he talks about it a lot in Ecclesiastes, chapter 7 and a couple other chapters, and then also a few times in the Proverbs, I believe. So there's a lot that talks about women in the Bible from a spiritual standpoint. So let me get back to the meat and bones of what I'm talking about here. So if there's a good and there's a bad struggle in the universe, this is the most important point of this whole talk, and my whole ultimate point here is that if there's a good and a bad in the universe, how would they really, how would they corrupt mankind? Because if mankind is made in God's image to represent God, if mankind is at the crux of what God is doing and God's purpose, which is, if you read the Bible, that's what it is, right? If we're to have dominion and rule over the earth, right, and we're to represent God, and we're to bring his third kingdom or his final kingdom, whatever you want to call it, back to earth and kick out the evil and all this kind of stuff, right? What is the bad? What is the bad going to do, right? What is the bad going to do? The bad is going to try to corrupt mankind. If the bad wants to stay alive, if the bad wants to, I mean, it's going to happen one way or the other. It's going to happen eventually. It's definitely an inevitable. But if the bad wants to prolong their reign and rule on the earth, which also begs the question, if God is good, why would he allow that? I've gone through all these kind of questions, questionings and thoughts, and at the end of the day, it just is what it is. It's just his plan. It's just the way he did it. If you believe God exists, then the Bible has to be the best book that represents God, even though there's a myriad pantheon of other gods. Jehovah in the Bible has to be the best one because no other book compares to the Bible, right? So if the Bible is the best holy book, if there is a real God, then the Bible's message is the truth. And I've read the entire Bible. I've read other holy books. Nothing compares to the Bible as far as scope and purpose and point and depth, wisdom. Nothing compares to the Bible, right? So it has to be from God, if God exists. Okay. No other book in general even comes close to the Bible. So if that's true, then what would be the method and methodology of the evil in order to prolong their stay on earth? Well, it would have to be to corrupt mankind, right? If mankind is if you read the Bible, you understand mankind is the purpose and center of the universe. If you don't think you're important as a human being, you're wrong. If you don't think you're central and you're insignificant or something like that, you don't mean anything. Like maybe to women you are, but not to God, not as far as the universe is concerned. I mean, we're higher than the animals, we're higher than the plants, we're higher than all other life forms. And you could argue and say, oh, we just rule because we figured it out somehow. We used to be monkeys and we took mushrooms and our brain developed, and it's like, anyway. No, there's something different about us, right? We have cognition, we have intellect, we have emotional intelligence, which is all sad because it all kind of goes to waste, right? Because we're in a war, right? Because there is powers that be that want to usurp us, that want to mess up our rightful place here on this earth, right? So if we're this place, how would they do it? How would they do that? How would these powers corrupt us? How would they put us down, bring us down, keep us down? Well, through women. Right? Because what does man want? We want companionship. And God even created us that way. God said it's not good for man to be alone in Genesis. Right? So, but see, if God said that, if God said, oh, it's not good for man to be alone, then he would have to do something about it. And he did. He took from our rib and created a woman. But what happened to that woman? She got corrupted by the serpent, and then we subsequently got corrupted through her. Has that corruption ever changed? Has the serpent's tactic ever changed? I don't think so. This is what we're going through as men today in mgtow and red pill. We're going through the corruption of women. Women are corrupt. And what happens? We get corrupt through these women, through porn, through OnlyFans, through, trying to get laid, through trying to find a wife, right? You can't just find a wife. You got to make money. So what does that mean? That sticks us to the matrix. And we're stuck because we say, oh, I want to walk away. We got a dick. Our dick's like, hey man, I need to come. And we got a heart. And our heart's like, hey man, I'm lonely. I want somebody to hug at night. I want somebody to cuddle with. I want somebody to kiss me and tell me they love me. I want to feel, I want to feel like somebody cares about me, right? So we're screwed. We're in between a rock and a hard place. We're hemmed in. We're hemmed up. Right? We're caught up. Right? So that's how he gets to us. That's how the evil gets to us, right? We have to work. We have to. Otherwise, we're just losers because we'll be lonely. Right? I don't care how mgtow you are and how much you say, oh, I don't want women. You're fucking lonely, man. You're lonely. I mean, mgtow, red pill, I get it. But, at the end of the day, we want women. We want to be loved and cared about. We need sex as a physical necessity, right? Paul said, hey, only some people can be alone. In 1 Corinthians, he says, only those people who have the gift. Not everybody has the gift. Meaning, people need sex. Some people don't. Some people, they're just not that sexual. Right? So, but what does that evil do? What is that force that wants to get at man? What does it do? It knows we want women. It knows that's our deepest need, besides needing God, right? And the Bible says, oh, well, God, a man who finds a good wife is blessed by God. Well, not many people are blessed by God then, I guess, right? He created us for good, and he wants us to be happy and have a family, right? But yet, look at how many people are messed up. Look at how messed up the world is. And that's not his fault, right? Oh, it's the devil's fault, right? It's kind of changing the goalposts, right? And that's been my critique of the Bible and God. And some people have come on my channel and said, oh, why are you critiquing God? Why are you hating on Christianity? And you were never saved in the first place. It's like, bro, you don't even know. Your mind hasn't even gone to certain places that I've gone. I'm not saying that in a prideful way. I'm just saying you can't relate with people who, I had a woman once tell me, she said, God has always answered my prayers. I'm like, okay, that must be nice. But God sure hasn't answered a lot of my prayers, I'll tell you that, and a lot of other people's prayers as well. You think people born into Afghanistan or born into these sufferings, you think they're not praying? You think they're not asking God for a better life? And what do they get? Gassed, bombed, right? No, I'm not going to sit here and just, point the finger all at God. I'm sure Satan does that stuff, right? He's behind that. But God allows it, right? And what do people in the West do? Oh, well, my life is fine. I don't need... Well, our government's crumbling. Our government, the rug is being pulled out from under our government. So your little security and safety and money might not last another 5 years, maybe another decade if you're lucky. But But anyway, let me get back to the core. The core thing is that there's two aspects. On the one hand, I believe God created women the way that he did, or made women from our rib the way that he did, in order that we wouldn't have an easy time here, right? That we wouldn't, rest on our laurels or just chill and do nothing. Because if women just loved us for who we were, we wouldn't feel the need to advance. We wouldn't feel the need to build airplanes and build trains and build cities and skyscrapers. We wouldn't feel the need to do all that, right? And why does God need that? He needs that so that people can connect, right? And that's what they're doing right now. They're connecting through Skype and Zoom and, the internet, and things are being shared. The gospel's being shared. So he's getting his way. But meanwhile, a lot of us are out here suffering. A lot of us are out here like, what the fuck? Why are these women so messed up? So it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't. You're fucking screwed. You know what I mean? Like, now there's lucky people, you could say. Oh, well, this guy's just good looking, or he's got money, and he got a house, got a farm, he got a beautiful wife. He's got it all. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe that'll only last this, in this lifetime, right? God says, he who loses his soul life for my sake will gain it. Maybe that only will last in this lifetime, and in the next life, he won't be so lucky. I don't know. And then there's people that I know that love God and have a family, and they've got everything, and I just think, man, that sure must be nice. But that's not everybody. That's pretty rare. So there's different ways to look at it. And then really from a spiritual standpoint, you got to understand that I believe fully that the devil is corrupting women, and he uses women to corrupt mankind. I believe that fully. I really do. But also you gotta look at it from this perspective. God allowed it, right? God allowed it. So what can you say about that? How do you love a God? How do you praise God, and when the situation is the way that it is, and we're all suffering, right? We're all down here suffering with this bullshit. And everybody's just caught up. Everybody's, I want money, my job, anxiety, want a better life, right? Want nicer things, want a better car. Like, how many people are really kind to each other? How many people are really, I mean, it's out there, you'll see it, but it's rare. Most people don't give a fuck. Most people are selfish. Most people don't care about God. Most people don't care about other people suffering. Most people don't care. How do you think these women get to be that way in the first place? They don't give a shit. They don't want love. They want money. They want to pimp their pussy. They want to, exploit themselves. They want to be whores. And yes, you're still a whore if you're married, because the guy you chose, he's got money. He's got a nice situation. Women ain't choosing no bums, so you're still whoring yourself one way or the other, right? But you gotta look at it from a different perspective. God must have made them this way, It must be like that for a reason. God didn't want them loving us, because then we'd be happy. We might not need him. We might not need God, Anyway, these are just things that I think about it. Things that I think about, and you guys should think about it too. But I think I'm going to end there. Appreciate you listening. Jay Lee, Northwest Podcast. Peace.